Welcome back to Deep Dive with Bill and Daisy. I hope you all had some time to relax over the holidays.
Absolutely. New year, new you, right?
That's the spirit.
Hmm.
We had some fun with those holiday deep dives last month,
We did.
but we're back in our regular mode now.
Back to normal.
And you know how everyone's talking about New Year's resolutions and self-improvement this time of year?
Yeah.
We thought we'd dive into something that could actually help with that.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
The connection between perception and perspective.
Okay, interesting.
You sent us a bunch of articles and research on the topic.
That's it.
So we've done the heavy lifting for you. Get ready for a deep dive. So first things first.
Yeah.
What exactly is perception?
Well, think of it as how we interpret the world around us.
Okay.
It's not just about what we see and hear and smell, our senses.
Right.
But it's about how our brains process all that information.
So it's not just the raw data, it's how we make sense of it.
Exactly. And it's subjective, too, meaning two people can experience the same thing, like the same event, and walk away with totally different interpretations.
So like if we both went to an art museum,
Yeah.
we might react completely differently to the same painting.
Totally. Your background, your mood that day, even your taste in art, it all colors how you see things.
I see what you did there.
Now, perspective is kind of similar, but a bit different.
Yeah.
It's more about the mental framework you bring to a situation.
A lens you see the world through.
Right. Like imagine two people are facing the same work deadline.
Okay.
One person might see it as a challenge, a chance to prove themselves. The other person might see it as a total threat, like they're gonna fail.
Same situation, different reaction.
Exactly. All because of their perspective.
This is blowing my mind already. So can we actually improve our perception?
You absolutely can.
Really?
Mindfulness is key here. It's all about being present.
In the moment.
Yeah. Aware of your thoughts and feelings without judging them.
Okay.
It helps you see things as they are. Without all the baggage from the past.
So instead of just reacting based on emotions,
Right.
we can actually stop and observe things more objectively.
You got it. Mindfulness clears away the mental clutter.
Wow.
You know those days when you're super stressed and everything seems overwhelming? Just take 5 deep breaths.
Okay.
Focus on your breath.
Yeah.
It's like a mini mindfulness practice anyone can do.
Doable.
Doable.
So what about those cognitive biases everyone talks about?
Oh, yeah, those pesky things.
Are those part of perception too?
Totally. Think of cognitive biases as mental shortcuts our brains use to process information quickly. Sometimes they're helpful,
Right.
but sometimes they lead us astray.
Like how?
Well, you've probably heard of confirmation bias, right?
Oh yeah, where you only see what you already believe.
Exactly. We all do it to some extent. But being aware of these biases is the first step to challenging them.
So how do we actually do that? Catch ourselves in the act.
It takes practice for sure, but one strategy is to actively seek out different perspectives.
Like if I have a strong opinion, I should ask myself, what if the opposite were true?
Exactly. It forces you to step outside your own little bubble and consider other possibilities.
That's a good one. So we've talked about perception. What about perspective?
Yeah.
Can we actually shift that in a more positive direction?
Absolutely. One powerful approach is adopting what's called a growth mindset.
Growth mindset. What's that?
So instead of seeing challenges as like impossible obstacles,
Yeah.
you see them as opportunities to learn and grow.
So it's about embracing challenges instead of fearing them.
Right. Like think about a skill you've always wanted to learn,
Right.
like maybe a new language or playing an instrument.
Yeah.
With a growth mindset, each attempt isn't a failure. It's a step closer to mastering that skill.
I like that, especially at the start of a new year, filled with all these possibilities.
Right. It's about shifting your thinking from I can't to how can I?
That's a small shift with a big impact.
Absolutely. And speaking of reframing,
Yeah,
have you heard that practicing gratitude can help shift your perspective?
I have, but how do we actually do that?
Well, when you focus on what you're grateful for, you naturally shift your attention to the positive.
Okay.
It's about appreciating what you have, not what you lack.
And how do we make that a habit?
A gratitude journal can be really helpful. Each day, write down a few things, big or small, that you're grateful for.
Like what kind of things?
It could be anything. A delicious meal, a phone call with a friend, a beautiful sunset, anything that makes you feel thankful.
So by actually writing it down,
Yeah,
we're training our brains to focus on the good.
exactly. And over time, this practice can shift your whole outlook on life. You'll be more resilient, more able to handle those tough times.
This is fascinating. So how do perception and perspective work together in our everyday lives? It can't all be theoretical, right?
Oh, it's definitely not theoretical. Think about like a difficult conversation with a friend.
Okay.
If your perception is all clouded by anger or resentment, you might misinterpret what they're saying.
Yeah, that would lead to more conflict.
Right. But if you approach that conversation mindfully,
Aware of my own emotions.
yeah, you can actually hear their words more objectively.
And if I have a perspective that values open communication,
Yeah.
I'll be more likely to listen and try to find a resolution.
Exactly. Perception and perspective working together.
Wow, this deep dive is already blowing my mind.
It is pretty deep, isn't
I
it?
feel like I'm seeing the world in a whole new way.
And how we can actually shape our experiences for the better.
Well said. I'm already feeling inspired.
You too.
We're going to take a quick break here.
Okay.
But when we come back, we'll dive into some specific examples of how perception and perspective play out in different areas of our lives.
Sounds good. Can't wait. Welcome back.
Ready to explore how these perception and perspective superpowers can actually make a difference in our lives.
Absolutely. Let's jump into some real-life situations where these concepts come into play.
Okay, how about relationships?
Yeah, good one.
How can understanding perception and perspective help us build stronger connections with the people we care about?
Well, one of the biggest challenges in any relationship
What's that?
is that we assume other people see things the same way we do.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But that's almost never true.
Right, we all have our own unique lens, like you said.
Exactly. And when we forget that, that's when we run into misunderstandings, hurt feelings, conflicts, all that.
So how do we use these ideas, perception and perspective, to avoid those pitfalls?
Active listening is huge. It's not just about waiting for your turn to talk.
Yeah.
It's about truly tuning into what the other person is saying.
So you're saying it's about going beyond just hearing the words,
Yeah.
but actually trying to grasp their perspective.
Exactly. Pay attention to their tone of voice, their body language, all those little cues that tell you what's really going on.
Oh, I see.
And don't be afraid to ask clarifying questions,
Instead of jumping to conclusions.
Yeah. Like, what did you mean by that? Or can you help me understand your point of view on this?
Simple questions, but they can make a big difference.
Huge difference. And remember, even if you don't agree with someone's perspective, you can still respect it.
Try to see where they're coming from,
Exactly. That's where empathy comes in.
putting ourselves in their shoes.
Yeah. Empathy is like the secret sauce for strong, healthy relationships. And it's all tied up with perception and perspective.
Because to really empathize with someone,
Yeah.
we need to understand both how they see the situation and the perspective they bring to it.
You got it. It's about seeing the world through their eyes, even if it's different from our own.
I'm starting to see how much our relationships are shaped by these ideas.
They really are the foundation, and the more aware we become of them, the better we can navigate our relationships.
And this is making me think about other areas of life too, like our careers.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine you're in a job interview, right? How do you think perception and perspective play a role there?
Well, first impressions are everything.
So true.
So I guess I'd want to be mindful of how I'm presenting myself.
You want to be authentic, of course, but also think about how the interviewer might perceive you.
Yeah, it's like a different context.
It is. And remember that growth mindset we talked about.
Huh.
Try to see the interview not as a test, but as a learning experience, no matter what happens.
So even if I don't get the job,
Yeah. You can still walk away with valuable insights.
and maybe even some new skills.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And that positive perspective can really shine through, Show the interviewer you're eager to learn and grow.
Makes sense.
Those qualities are gold in any workplace.
It's about showing resilience,
Mhm.
that you can adapt and keep going.
That's it. And that growth mindset will serve you well throughout your career, not just in interviews.
I'm seeing a pattern here.
What's that?
Perception and perspective aren't just abstract ideas. They have real-world impact on how we connect with people, how we approach our careers, how we handle challenges.
They're the tools we use to build a life we love.
Okay, so how do we actually use these insights to transform our lives? Like, what are the practical steps we can take?
Well, that's where the magic happens. Combining clear perception with a positive, growth-oriented perspective, that's the recipe for a more empowered and fulfilling life.
It's not just about seeing things differently. It's about a whole new attitude.
You got it. Shifting from limitation to possibility.
And that shift can impact everything.
Everything. Relationships, careers, well-being, the whole package.
I'm seeing the potential here.
It's huge.
Yeah.
When you see the world clearly and approach it with positivity, you're more likely to make choices that truly align with your values and goals.
We become more resilient, more open to new things.
Exactly. And more likely to reach our full potential.
Wow, this is an incredible deep dive. I feel like I've gained a whole new toolkit for life.
And the best part is, we're just getting started.
I know, right? We're going to take a quick break here.
Okay.
But when we come back, we'll explore some specific techniques and practices for actually integrating these insights into our daily routines.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Okay, so we've talked about the theory. Now, how do we actually put these ideas into practice?
Because knowing is one thing, but doing is what makes all the difference.
Absolutely. So let's start with mindfulness.
Yeah.
We talked about how powerful it can be for sharpening our perception. But how do we actually cultivate mindfulness in our daily lives?
Yeah.
It can't just be wishful thinking, right?
You're right. It takes practice. But even a few minutes a day can have a huge impact.
Okay.
One of the simplest techniques is mindful breathing.
Mindful breathing.
Yeah, remember we talked about it? Just taking a few deep breaths, focusing on the sensation of your breath.
I remember.
It's so simple, but it really works.
Is there a best time to do this?
Anytime. Try it first thing in the morning or before bed, or even during a break at work when you're feeling stressed.
Like a reset button for your mind.
Exactly. And once you get comfortable with mindful breathing, you can start bringing that awareness into other activities.
Like what?
Think about everyday things like eating, showering, even just walking. Instead of just going through the motions, really pay attention, engage all your senses.
Be present in the moment.
Yes. And the more you practice, the more natural it will become.
Okay, so mindfulness is one thing.
Yeah.
What about those cognitive biases? How do we keep those in check? They seem so sneaky.
Well, one of the best ways is to actively seek out different perspectives.
Like step outside our comfort zones.
Exactly. Expose ourselves to different viewpoints, even the ones that challenge our own beliefs.
That can be kind of tough though, right?
It can be, but it's so valuable for growth. The key is to approach those conversations with curiosity, not judgment.
So instead of trying to win the argument,
Right.
I'm trying to understand where they're coming from.
Exactly. And even if you don't agree in the end, you've expanded your own perspective.
It's like holding up a mirror to our own thinking.
I love that. And remember, seeking diverse perspectives doesn't have to be a big debate. You can read books by authors with different backgrounds, watch documentaries, even travel to new places.
So many ways to broaden our horizons.
There are.
Okay, so mindfulness, challenging our biases. What about shifting our perspective in a more positive direction? We talked about gratitude earlier.
Right, gratitude.
How do we make that a regular part of our lives?
That gratitude journal we mentioned, super helpful. Just take a few minutes each day to jot down a few things you're grateful for.
Anything, big or small.
Anything. It could be the sunshine, a good cup of coffee, your health, anything that brings you joy.
So we're training our brains to focus on the positive.
You got it. And as you cultivate that gratitude, you'll start to see a shift in your whole outlook.
You'll be more resilient, more able to handle the tough stuff.
Exactly.
What are some other ways to shift our perspective toward the positive?
Reframing negative thoughts is a powerful one.
Reframing.
So instead of letting those negative thoughts spiral out of control, you consciously choose to reframe them in a more balanced, realistic way.
Give me an example.
Okay. Imagine you have a setback at work. Your first thought might be, I'm a failure, I'll never succeed. Right. That's not very helpful. So instead of letting that thought define you, try reframing it. You could say, this setback is a learning opportunity. I'll use it to improve and try again.
Turning a negative into a positive.
Exactly. And the more you practice, the easier it gets.
You're building that mental muscle.
You are.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. I feel like I have a whole new set of tools to navigate life.
Me too. It's been fun exploring these ideas with you.
Absolutely. And remember, improving perception and perspective is an ongoing journey.
It is.
It's not about being perfect. It's about continuous growth.
Well said. So keep thinking, keep questioning, and keep exploring.
And if you ever want to dive deeper into a specific topic, you know where to find us. Just send an email to peacerecord@gmail.com.
We love hearing from our listeners.
And until next time, see you next week.